I feel like the word supernatural should be used when describing like health food. Like, try this flaxseed oil. It's supernatural, no preservatives. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all of the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out the introduction video. There's a link to it in the description below, and it's going to give you a pretty good overview of what we do here at the Horror Movie Syllabus. In short, we look at a particular subgenre of horror, and then we pick 3 movies from that subgenre to explore. But this is our doctorate level series. This is where we re-explore a subgenre that we've already done a video on before. We recap that video a little bit, and then we present a new 4th doctorate level selection. Something that's maybe a little more deeper cut or a little less appreciated, something that needs to be talked about that maybe isn't getting talked about as much. And today, what we're looking at or revisiting is the supernatural horror subgenre. And yeah, that's kind of a vague and broad subgenre when you think about it just from the word, right? We talked about this in the previous video, how so many horror movies are supernatural or have supernatural aspects to them that it doesn't really seem like it makes a lot of sense to give it its own subgenre when we have all these other subgenres that have supernatural aspects to them. But that was kind of the point. The idea of the supernatural subgenre was kind of as a catch-all to put in movies that didn't neatly fit in other subgenres, that weren't a possession movie or a ghost movie or a demon movie or whatever. They defied characterization, or they didn't neatly fit into one of those other subgenres, but they still were undeniably supernatural. So the way that we described this was basically focusing on movies where the antagonist of the movie isn't so easily identifiable. It's not super clear what kind of creature is antagonizing the protagonist. And that worked out really well, actually. It was very clear, I think, when you saw the movies that we picked to discuss this, what we were talking about, what we were getting at in terms of this kind of vague and nebulous supernatural threat. And let's go ahead and just recap what we talked about in this video, in those movies right now. The first movie that we talked about in our previous supernatural horror video was Final Destination. And we talked about not just the movie itself, but the entire franchise and how popular it is and how it remains popular to this day. As of this recording, a new one just came out a couple months ago, and it's fantastic, by the way. But it started out with the first one, and it started out with a really clever premise. This idea of death being this concept or this force of nature that you can't defy. If you're meant to die somewhere and you survived, then there was death trying to come back and claim you. And it wasn't really clear, is death evil? Is it good? What is it? Is it a ghost? What is it? It's a perfect example of what we're talking about. We talk about supernatural horror that's like an ill-defined antagonist. This is one of it. It also is just a fun series. The Rube Goldbergian traps that wind up leading to really creative, gory kills, fun gore. It's a really fun series that if you like gore, if you like being on the edge of your seat trying to figure out how somebody's going to die, and then with storylines that don't necessarily test your brain, this is the series for you. And like I said, it's just come back again with another new one, a new installment that was very, very popular. So there's a lot of blood left, a lot of life left in this series about death. The next movie that we talked about was It Follows. And when It Follows came out, it had a lot of buzz around it. It felt like a very fresh, original idea, and I was definitely on that bandwagon. I went crazy for this movie. I really, really loved it. And it was easy to love this movie because it was so well made. It had some very obvious John Carpenter influence to it that it delivered very well in terms of camera work and pacing. The idea was a really cool idea. This allegory for sexually transmitted diseases with this ghost or this entity or whatever it is that gets passed on via having sex is a really interesting idea. And the way they tied the paranoia of the characters into the paranoia of the audience by making it be anybody, it could look like anybody. So you're always wondering, is that the entity? Is that the thing coming out for me? Had really solid acting all around, especially Micah Monroe, who's a scream queen in her own right these days. And we talked a little bit about having a sequel to it, how it's probably a bad idea, and yet they're still talking about doing that, still talking about trying to explain something a little bit more that shouldn't be explained, and that they should kind of leave it mysterious and unknown which again is what we're talking about here, these supernatural horror movies, but also keeps the mystery creepy and unsettling. And if you over explain it, it may not work right as well. Hopefully they don't do that sequel, but the original, it's a must see. And the last movie that we talked about was Pontypool. And Pontypool was a kind of an interesting one. It's a lot more of a deeper cut one. It feels like this movie is a lot lesser known and a lot less mainstream than the other ones for sure. But it's very well liked. The people who have seen it seem to really like it. I don't think I know anybody who saw it and disliked it. And the varying levels of love for it, but there always seems to be a positive reaction to it. And it's easy to see why. It's a very interesting, fresh concept, kind of a high concept movie. The idea of linguistic horror, which I talked about on the previous video, the idea of using linguistics as the catalyst for your horror and having the words that we use and the way that we talk being the antagonist and creating the threat. Now, we talked a little bit about the zombie controversy, the zombie debate, how people call this a zombie movie. I don't. I refute that, and I talked about that quite a bit on the previous video, that these don't really seem like zombies per se, or that's not the catalyst for it because they're not dead or whatever. I recognize that I've kind of gone back and forth on that debate in terms of some movies I don't care if zombies are dead, some movies I do. But in this case, I feel like the focus on the movie needs to be the linguistic horror and not the zombie-like creatures that it creates. That's what makes this movie unique. That's what makes it interesting, and that's what makes it an underrated must-see movie. So those are the movies we discussed in our supernatural horror video, but now it's time for our new fourth doctorate level selection. Our doctorate level selection for supernatural horror is The Night House. The Night House came out in 2020 and was directed by David Bruckner, who's done a few things that are noteworthy. He's got some cool projects under his belt, so he's a very capable director who's delivered in the past. And this one is much less noteworthy than the other movies that he's done. And I say that in the sense of the reality that this movie doesn't get a lot of note, doesn't get a lot of buzz, a lot of press, it seems, especially compared to some of the other things he's done, but it deserves to. It really, and this is why we're talking about it here in the doctorate level, because it deserves more shine than it gets. Now, if you haven't seen it before, the movie is about a recently widowed woman whose husband committed suicide, and she is obviously struggling with this and going through some interesting, difficult times. And she's starting to have strange, supernatural, paranormal things happen in her house, which was designed by her husband. And she's not really sure, is he kind of trying to contact her as a ghost, or is there something else going on that's a little bit different, maybe a little bit more sinister? Is she in danger? Hijinks abound. We're going to go ahead and stop there so as to not spoil the movie. The interesting thing about this movie is that it works in large part due to the performance of its lead star, Rebecca Hall. Now, we've talked about Rebecca Hall a few times on the channel, like in The Gift and The Awakening. She always delivers. She is an underrated scream queen. Every time I've seen her in a horror movie, she brings it. And this is not only her doing that again, but maybe the best performance I've seen of hers that I can think of off the top of my head, because she crushes it here, and it's important because it carries the movie. The whole idea is you're with this woman as she's experiencing this different phenomena and wondering, is she kind of going crazy? Is there something going on? Are there secrets to be uncovered? And spoiler alert, there are. And it's an interesting performance because it's a very authentic performance. Like you're sitting with this woman who's going through severe grief, and Rebecca Hall is nailing this because she's giving us performance of a character that is abrasive and rough and angry about her loss and lashing out at people, and not necessarily the most likable person. And they don't rub down those rough edges. They don't neuter the performance. They let her be unlikable, and yet she still has a vulnerability that endears you to her and makes you care about her. So she could be off-putting as a character, but she's not. And that's squarely Rebecca Hall pulling that off. Yeah, I'll give the script some credit for that too, but it's a tough, nuanced performance to pull that off, and she does it. And it's important because you got to stick with her, because the movie is exploring grief. The theme of grief in this movie, which we're seeing a lot in movies, especially kind of elevated horror type movies, is really prevalent here, and it's very strong here. It's done very, very well. It's a wonderful allegory for grief and questions and self-doubt and stuff like that. And it's interesting because it's setting it up a little bit like a mystery, right? You've got the grief allegory, but you've got this mystery of what is happening in her house. What is she seeing? What's going on? And, as she digs into this a little bit and starts to find out that her husband had secrets and she didn't know everything she thought she knew. And maybe this kind of shines a little bit of light into finding out why he did what he did, because he's left a mysterious note that is something she understands, but she also doesn't understand. I'm trying not to spoil things, obviously, so I'm kind of getting a little vague here, but it's interesting how they do a good job of setting up these threads that she's going to follow, that you want her to follow because you want answers to this mystery. But at the same time, it's a deep exploration into grief. And that winds up by the end of the movie becoming very prevalent, very upfront, very noteworthy, very obvious, right? Because the first part of this movie, like the first, I don't know, half or whatever, this feels like a traditional ghost story, haunted house story, ghost movie. And at first that's what you think you're getting, and it's perfectly fine, right? It's working fairly well. And it puts you on edge right away, like right off the bat, things are happening. If you like ghost stories, haunted house stories, this is going to work for you for sure, because it's giving you that kind of stuff and you're right in there. And then it goes deeper, or it goes more interesting. It tries something a little bit different. You get this knowledge that she has young in the past, she actually experienced a near-death experience where she actually was dead for a brief amount of time, and what she saw, and the way she articulates this idea that the afterlife for her is, she said, I wish I could tell you that there's light at the end of the tunnel, but it's just tunnel. It's a chilling moment and a really interesting concept that is kind of part of the thesis of this film, and like the bleak afterlife outlook that it has. It's really dovetailing into not just grief, but depression. And it's making depression scary. It's kind of making depression the antagonist, right? Quite literally. Again, I don't want to spoil the movie too much, but the idea of how this movie is using negative space for the jump scares is indicative of what they're saying the entity or the antagonist is. It's using this house, this designed house, as kind of a character. The way it's a gorgeous house too, by the way. It's beautiful right there by the lake, and the way it's all laid out and everything like that, it lends itself to these jump scares, creepy scenes. But those jump scare, creepy scenes matter. They are. It's hard not to spoil this movie, but they are indicative of what it is that is, a danger in the movie, and it's very much allegorical to going through depression, to suffering grief. It really does this great job of taking that allegory and making it, actualizing it, like making it a real threat. And I love it. I think it's great. Now, the critics loved it too. They really, really liked this one. It got good reviews. But audiences weren't feeling this as much. They just didn't really dig into it. It didn't find its audience. They were kind of meh about it. Now it's, maybe pandemic time, it just couldn't find its audience, whatever. But I'll tell you right now, it deserves better. It deserves more love. It's the reason why I'm picking it. It's the reason why I wanted to talk about it, because it's an exceptional movie. I really like it. And this is kind of in my wheelhouse, movies about grief and stuff like that, allegorical movies, arguably, elevated horror. I know some people don't like that term, but that kind of stuff, allegorical movies, I tend to really vibe with those, and I really vibe with this one. This one really hits. Rebecca Hall carrying this movie, making it work. Everybody else in the movie doing solid work, but it's Rebecca Hall who's outstanding in this, and it's just a really clever concept that's executed extremely well. Tip my hat to David Bruckner as well. He makes this movie well. It's paced really well. It looks wonderful. It's got some cool jump scares. It's got some really cool imagery, and it has a really interesting concept that I think it nails it. And by the end of the movie, I was blown away. I love this movie. I think you should check it out if you haven't seen it before, for sure. And if you have, let me know what you think, because I am super into this movie. I'm very effusive about it, and I'm wondering if the rest of you feel the same way. Let me know in the comments if you think this movie's as good as I think it is, or if you think it falls short, or if you have other opinions on it. Let us know those in the comments as well. But again, if you haven't seen it, check this one out. It is 100% worth your time. So that's our Doctorate Level selection for supernatural horror, but of course I'm going to bring up an extra credit movie as well, because frankly, this is one that I have to talk about, and we're going to get into it, and you'll see. We'll get into it in just a second. The extra credit movie I'm talking about today is Smile. The Smile came out in 2022 and was directed by Parker Finn. It was Parker's feature directorial debut, and from all I can tell, Parker Finn's basically making a career now out of Smile. Like, he made the short, and now he made the movie, and then he made the sequel, and it's like Smile franchise is what he does now, apparently. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not trying to throw any shade on the guy or anything like that, but it is interesting that this movie is so popular and it's so big that he can basically make his whole career out of this now. But I'm not on that boat. I'm not on that bandwagon, and we're going to get into that in just a second. First, if you haven't seen it before, the movie is about a therapist who's dealing with a patient who's talking about having these strange visions of smiling people. And then when that patient commits suicide in front of the therapist starts having these visions as well of people smiling, doing horrible things, violent things. And the violence starts to escalate, and she seems like she's kind of losing her mind, and everybody else thinks she's losing her mind. She doesn't know anymore what's real and what's imaginary. And of course, hijinks abound, as they tend to do. But we're going to go ahead and stop there if you haven't seen this before, although good chance that most of you have seen this before because it's a huge, huge hit. This movie was a massive hit. It made like $217 million on a $17 million budget. It was loved. And I'm a little surprised by that because I don't love it. Full disclosure, I'm not a fan of this movie. I hope we didn't talk about this previously on the channel, because if we did, I forgot about it because I don't want to talk about it because I don't particularly like it. But it's such a popular movie, and now that they have a sequel that was also super popular, kind of have to bring it up. It's big enough, it's important enough, it's noteworthy enough that it has to be talked about on the syllabus. So here we are. And the reasons why I don't like this movie are just, I don't know, I find it to be meh, I guess, for a better way to put it, mid, as the kids would say. It doesn't do much for me. It feels like a kind of a culmination or bouillabaisse of other ideas kind of put together. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it doesn't do much for me. The whole idea for the movie stems from a short that Parker Finn did called Laura Hasn't Slept. And I haven't seen that short, but apparently it's good enough to make a movie out of it. And to his credit, and this is one thing I do like, is he didn't make a movie version of the short. He made the movie a sequel to the short. The woman that commits suicide at the beginning is the woman from the short. That's cool. I like that. And it almost makes me want to go and see the short, although, again, I'm just not that motivated because I'm not that into the movie. And part of what hurts me in the beginning of the movie is the lead, Sosie Bacon, who's apparently the daughter of Kevin Bacon. And I love Kevin Bacon. And most of the other actors I have no problem with. They're solid. They're good. I don't have any issues with them. Sosie Bacon is just, there's no charisma to me for her. Like, she's just kind of a void of charisma. She's not interesting. I find it very hard to relate to her character. I have no sympathy for her character. I'm not really with her on this journey. And that's a big problem for the movie because the movie's counting on me being with her and rolling with her while she struggles with knowing what's real and what's not and how to solve this issue and explore this mystery. And I'm just not with her. I'm not with her at all. I don't care about her. And that's a problem. And I do think part of that's the script, but I think also part of it is the performance. I'm not impressed. Now, once again, I'm in the minority on this one because when I look at the reviews, the very positive reviews of this movie, people love her performance. She gets a lot of praise for her performance. And hey, different strokes, I guess. Everybody else likes her. I'm not the guy. I don't like her in this movie, but everybody else does. So once again, I'm on an island here. But there's a lot of stuff that is kind of irrefutable about this movie. Like it really does draw a lot of inspiration from movies like It Follows and like The Ring, and even like that Blumhouse Truth or Dare movie. Like the smile thing is straight out of that Truth or Dare movie. Like it's the same exact thing. I don't know why that Truth or Dare movie gets so much animosity and this movie gets so much love, because they kind of feel like the same thing to me. And so that's the thing. I actually like that Truth or Dare movie better. And I know that's sacrilegious to a lot of you, but it's the truth, man. Like I just like that one was first, and it's the same thing, you know. That's kind of like objectively true, that these influences are very prominent in Smile. It doesn't feel super original. Now it does have this nebulous entity that's unclear what it is, and it's not easily identifiable. It doesn't really fit into another subgenre super easily, so that's why we're talking about it here. But it does do a lot of work to explain what it is and kind of like shed light on the mystery. There's this whole mystery of the lead girl and lead woman trying to figure out what's going on. It's very convoluted. It's a lot of work. It does remind me a little bit of The Ring and the investigation for The Ring. But they show the entity here, which I think is a bit of a mistake. It does take a lot of the mystery out. Unlike It Follows, which was smart enough not to kind of dig too deep into what the entity was. In this case, it shows it, and it's fine. It's fine. Again, it's fine. I don't have a big problem with it. I have a feeling that modern audiences really want to see it. It's like the whole Blair Witch thing, right? They want to see the Blair Witch. People want to see the monster. And so they show it here. They don't give a whole lot of explanation as to why it works the way it does or what it's about. So it's still preserving some mystery. And then they do the sequel. They didn't dig into that too much. But for me, that was a bit of a letdown. But the movie itself wasn't even really grabbing me all that much. I mean, I've watched this movie at least 3 times because I watched it again to do this video. And I'd seen it twice before because I just wasn't sure what I was missing about it, and it drags for me. I find it to be it's like a long movie. It's like a 2 hour movie, and it's slow to me. It drags. Like the scenes that are the creepy scenes are fine. They're good, but like it drags. And then there's a lot of like cheap jump scares which don't do much for me a lot of the time. They're fine here. I know a lot of people probably love the jump scares. Like if I watch reaction videos of this, I'm sure people really enjoy the jump scares. And I'm sure that's a big part of what made this movie so popular. But it doesn't do much for me. But it does do for the masses because apparently this was going to be a streaming movie and they were going to put it straight on streaming, but they did some test screenings and audiences reacted so positively to it that they gave it a theatrical run. And thank God they did because they made tons and tons of money off of it, created a whole franchise. Good for them. No animosity about this. I just don't get it. I don't get the appeal. I don't see what the big deal is about Smile. I don't get it. I did go and see the sequel and it's better. It's not I still don't love the sequel, but it's better. It's a little bit more streamlined. We're a little bit more with the character who I related to a little bit better. I liked the lead woman in Smile 2 better than the lead in Smile. And I still, they kind of didn't do so much of this deep investigation mystery stuff and more just kind of focused on her breakdown and the effect this was having on her life. So it was better, but I was still kind of meh about it. I still wasn't super into it. It still didn't win me over. Now, again, everybody else seemed to really like it, and I'm glad for them. I don't want to hate on other people liking what they like because just because it's not for me, it doesn't resonate for me, doesn't mean it's not good. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I don't like it. It doesn't do much for me. I think it could be better. I think there could be more interesting. But if you like it, that's awesome. That's great. I'm glad you guys like it. Like it's not a bad movie. Objectively, it's well made. Aside from Sosie Bacon's performance, I think that the acting is good. I think that the effects look good. I think it's a little long. I think it's a little derivative, but it's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not for me. I'm guessing it's for you. I'm guessing a lot of you like that. You know what? Tell me what I'm missing about it. If you think you can explain why Smile is such a hit, why it's such a good movie, let me know. Because I'm obviously in the minority on this. Everybody else seems to think that's. I'm sure there's a few that don't, but most everybody seems to really like this movie. It was a huge hit. The sequel's a huge hit. They're going to be making more of these. I'd love to get on this bandwagon. I don't want to dislike these movies. I'll probably go see Smile 3 just to try to figure out if they've cracked it in a way that can get it to me and make me like it. But let me know in the comments what you think of it because I would be curious to hear your thoughts on why I should like Smile and what I'm missing about it. So let me know in the comments below. Okay, so that's going to do it for our re-exploration of supernatural horror. Like I said, I do tend to like these movies. I think that the idea of a nebulous, undefined antagonist is cool. It's interesting, and I'm down for that. So I'm glad I can explore these movies, even if it's something like Smile that kind of misses the mark. I still think the ideas are interesting enough that they're worth mentioning, worth exploring, worth checking out. And now it's time to check out a Horror Trivia Pursuit card. It's that time where I'm going to read a question here live on camera, try to answer it, hopefully not embarrass myself. And since we're talking supernatural horror, we're going to go with the paranormal category on the card. That seems like it makes sense. Here's our question. What Harry Potter franchise alum portrayed Arthur Kipps in 2012's The Woman in Black? Okay, so I'm pretty sure I can figure out who this is, the answer. And I'm going to be honest with you, Arthur Kipps, no idea. No idea. I have no idea for character names in general. In this case, I don't know who the character name is, but I do have deductive reasoning skills, and I'm going to apply them in answering this question, and I think you guys will too. I'm guessing that if you guys are familiar with this movie, the answer is pretty easy, and if you're not familiar with this movie, you might be able to take a guess. You might be able to figure this out just by making a guess, an educated guess on this one. I don't think it's that hard. It's funny, I don't think we've talked about Woman in Black on the channel yet, and I'm pretty sure we're going to. I'm not sure when, it's not imminent, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be talking about it in the future. And the actor that I am pretty sure is the right actor, the answer to this question, we have talked about that actor recently, so, that's my hint to you guys. If you guys are loyal viewers, you have probably seen the video, unless I'm wrong. If the answer is wrong, this is all embarrassing, but can't cut it. I'm doing it live. So that's my little clue to you, though, is I believe we talked about this answer, this actor, the answer of this question recently. And if you've been watching, then that's a hint to you. If you didn't already know, because like I said, if you know this movie at all, I think you know the answer to this question. But lock in your answer, lock in your guess, whatever the case may be, because I'm about to give you my answer. Ready? Okay. So my answer is, of course, Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter himself. And the answer to the card is Daniel Radcliffe. Yes, Daniel Radcliffe, who is the star of The Woman in Black. And that's why I was thinking to myself, as long as Arthur Knapp or whatever is the lead character, I know the answer to this question. And the odds of it being two Harry Potter people in that movie, well, you know. Anyways, I thought that one was kind of easy if you knew the movie. And if you didn't, then you were taking a shot at the dark. Although, again, Daniel Radcliffe, pretty strong guess. And we did talk about him recently. We just talked about horns not too long ago on the channel. So it's that was my clue to you. And I don't know, did you guys get it right? And if you didn't, who did you guess? That's going to do it for this week. Thank you for sticking around to the end. Give me recommendations for our supernatural horror movies and other movies, because I'm checking those out on our Is It Syllabus Worthy series and having a lot of fun with that. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you sticking out to the end. Thank you very much. Next week we'll be doing something completely different. But until then, I'm just going to say class dismissed. What is that, Sammy? Kale? You know I don't eat that crap. What's wrong with kale? It's good for you. Good for me? That stuff tastes like death. No, it's supernatural. There's no artificial flavors, no artificial colors. You're an artificial flavor. That doesn't even make any sense. You don't make any sense. You're insufferable. God, I wish I had some pie right now.